Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
To one more Sunday special one with some good food afterwards. Before we start, we'd like to reinforce our invitation for in 2 weeks, May 5th. We're going to have our FSS general meeting. It will be a special one where we'll be talking a little bit more about an opportunity for us to grow to a different space. And we'll give a little bit of a teaser as well today during lunch, some of the pictures or a picture that we have. But yeah, I'd like to invite everyone to be part of it and join us with your thoughts and just to know more how we are structured, what are our goals, and what we are hoping for the future for FSS. So today, I would like to start with a text, Living Springs, text number 132. And the title is Being Afraid. And the passage is from Matthew 25, versicle 25. I was afraid, so I hid your talent in the ground, as we're going to talk about the parable of talents. In the parable of talents, the negligent servant attributes his unhappy failure to fear. He had received less potential to realize a profit. He had only one talent accounted to him, and he was afraid of struggling to make it grow. Similar to what happened to the careless servant in the gospel narrative, there are many people who blame their meager resources for not being able to do what they want. So they remain idle and say they are afraid to do anything. Afraid of working, afraid of serving, afraid of making friends, afraid of being disappointment, afraid of suffering, afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of happiness. Afraid of suffering. They reach the end of their physical body as humans sensitives without having made the least effort to enrich their lives. In life, they fear death. In death, they fear life. And under the pretext of being disfavored by fate, they gradually become champions of uselessness and idleness. So, if you have received a harder task in the world, do not be afraid. Make it your way of progress and renewal. No matter how dark the road to each circumstances have led you, and reach it with the light of your effort at doing the good. Because being afraid was not an acceptable excuse in settling accounts between servant and master. So let us pray. So let's connect our thoughts, our emotions to our Father God, to Jesus Christ, our Master, to our guardian angels, and the entire spiritual team that guide and help us with all the work here promoting Spiritism and this consoling doctrine to all of us and to all our brothers and sisters. Let's be thankful for one more Sunday morning that we are gathered here to learn with each other, to exchange information, and to go further in our knowledge using Jesus' teachings in light of Spiritism, to learn how our behaviors, our emotions, and our attitudes can help or hinder some of our efforts to become a better immortal spirit. Let's ask that we maintain our connections to God's will, to God's wisdom, so we can take the best advantage of this time and maybe leave here a little bit better with a little bit of more knowledge and how we can improve our journey and to become better spirits. Let's ask that this meeting is blessed with love, is blessed with light, with compassion, and the true charity from our Master and our God. So be it. Okay, so today is one of my favorite parables, the parables of talent. Do we all know the basics? The basics of parable of talents? No? So basically, I kind of drew a picture of what happened in that parable. And as I read in this text here, God the Master at that time gave to the servants for one, 5 talents. For the other, 2 talents. For the other, 1 talent. And they said, the master said, hey, go and do your work. And after that, he came and kind of just to account. You with 5 talents, what have you done? The 5 talents said, hey, I multiplied and here's 5 more. The 2 talents said, yeah, I did my work and here's other 2 talents. But the crux of this parable is with this last servant here that had just 1 talent and he was afraid. And as Matthew describes, as the master came and kind of take into account what was the work, and the 5 talents gave more 5, and the master said, good job, you come to my right side. The 2 talents, 2 more, good job, come to my right side. Comes the 1 talent, he said, I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. And then what was the reaction of the master? It's like, that's, as Emmanuel explains here, being afraid or fear, it's not what I was expecting, right? So you will have to do all the work again. So you, that's not in the sense that you're going to be punished for not doing the work that I was expecting, but you have to try again. The parable says that you go to my left side and you're going to be in jail and you're going to suffer a little bit. But if we take kind of the context, not in being punished because you didn't do the work, this parable has a close meaning to my heart, because as we know, the parables have lots of layers, and one layer that I really appreciate in this parable is the layer of that 1 talent, and how fear and how being afraid in our lives can really hinder a lot of our progress, can really hinder a lot of accomplishments that we are invited to do the work, right? And the importance is, it's not about the result itself, about, yeah, I achieve X, Y, and Z. I'm, in terms of material stuff, career, progression, or even in my moral development, now I'm patient. We know that's not the expectation, because we have several lives and several opportunities for us to change our habits and to become better immortal spirits. It's all about the effort. It's all about the work that we put towards to do something and become better. Because if I even draw a connection to what Kardec said, and how do you recognize a good spirit, is you recognize by the efforts that you make to contain or to manage our bad inclinations. If the expectations for us is to erase, to change, to finish, or to do whatever and stay, Kardec would have said, we recognize a good spirit when they solve their problems and develop the whole virtue. That's not what Kardec was saying. Kardec was saying about the effort. And this whole parable, it's all about the effort. My hope today is to go through a little bit of the contextual, not the contextual, but some of the messages that the parable tells us and how we can apply that into our lives. And a long time ago, I came across, there is a book that was written by Chico Xavier with Valdo Pereira and, não é Valdo Pereira, Valdo Vieira. back in the day, I can't remember when, Chico with Valdo, they did a kind of a tour internationally. And they came to the US, Europe, and they wrote a lot about the Spiritism movement outside of Brazil. And in that book, he paraphrased the parable of talents, because sometimes like, what are talents? 5 talents? What do we mean by 5 talents? But what he did, he gave names to those 5 talents, like power, like knowledge, and so on. And I'll make you a little bit curious. He gave a specific talent for the 1 talent. I won't tell you now. When I get there, it's a very interesting analogy or paraphrasing that he did, and let's kind of interpret a little bit of that text. Okay, so as I mentioned, Alírio does a little bit of reflection on what was the motivation for the 2 servants that got 5 and 2 talents, and how different was their motivation in comparison to the one that got just 1 talent. And he describes that as the 2 servants that got the 5 and 2 talents, what motivated them was what he calls the motivation by approximation. What do we mean by that? But before, what is motivation? What is motivation for us? Motivation is what drives us, right? It's that energy that say, yeah, I'm going to go and do this course because I want to learn this skill or this technique. It's kind of the driver. It's kind of what moves us forward in order to achieve something. The same way that we have motivation to do something like skills, learning something, we need motivation for our own life to change something that we are not happy with our own immortal spirit. So when Alírio describes the motivation by approximation is when we are motivated and we are focused in solving the problem. It's like, I'm not happy with who I am in terms of patience or in terms of, I don't know, what have you. But what I focus is I want to achieve certain result. I want to be better. I'm not too focused on how hard it's going to be, if it's going to take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I'm not that focused on the efforts. I know that the effort will be required to do something, but I'm not like, oh, this is a drag, whole life. I focus on, okay, the benefit. If I get to that stage, I will be a better, or I hope to have benefits, and I will be a better person, a better immortal spirit. And we establish ourselves a proactive relationship. I don't wait until I'm kind of in a state that I'm too sad, or in a state that I'm very unsatisfied. I'm seeing that I'm not feeling well, and I want to do something. In contrary, the motivation by separation, we're just focused on the problems. Like, oh, this is too hard. It takes forever. It takes a lot of energy. And I'm not capable. Maybe I'll leave this for another life, or I start blaming. It's like, yeah, but the problem is the government, or the problem is the society that we live. There's nothing that I can do to solve this, right? And sometimes, and this is it's very nuanced. This motivation, it really focuses on the obligation. Yeah, I must solve this. Otherwise, I'm going to umbral, I'm going to a bad place. I don't do it because I want to do it for myself. I just do it because someone told me there is hell, or there's something that is not going to be good. So I'm obliged. I must do this without really doing it because you want to do something good for ourselves, right? And there's a lot of worry. It's like, maybe next Monday. next Monday. Or maybe next Monday, next year, right? So this is kind of what Illyrio tells. And that's a good reflection to see, we reflect ourselves, okay, when there's a challenge or there's something, how am I approaching it? What is my motivation? Am I motivated by, okay, let's do it. Takes some work? Yeah, it takes. But I know that result will be good. Or am I just to focus on, oh yeah, that's the hard work. It takes forever. And I'm going to see a lot of obstacles. And that's kind of how we can interpret that servant that only had one and say, ooh, I'm afraid. I'm not going to do a lot of work here because what can happen? I might lose this talent here. I don't know what the master is going to do with me, right? And I'm going to just hit this talent and just give it back. But as we learned, or as we've become more aware of all the parables and all the teachings from Jesus, there's no one single parable that Jesus encouraged us to be fearful or encouraged us not to make a choice or frighten us or frighten the characters at that time of making a mistake. There's a lot of parables, for example, the prodigal son, where the son that had all the inheritance went away, party a lot, spend everything, and then came back saying, I need your help, I made a wrong choice. And that father didn't say, told ya, you shouldn't have done that. What happened? That father just welcomed again. And all those parables with those characters, it's all about making a choice. We gotta make a choice in everything that we are faced in our lives, right? And that choice, the one that Jesus and all the teachers encourage, is to try. Is to try and do something. Even though we might make, and most likely, we might make a mistake. Very likely, there is a chance that we will make a mistake, but then we learned with that mistake some of the things that, yeah, maybe I will continue doing this, or maybe I need to change a little bit of course. But Jesus never encouraged us to stay neutral and just cross our arms, lying down in a hammock and hoping for the best. But even if we decided to do that, isn't that a choice as well? I decided to do nothing. That is a choice. And if I even go a little bit further and do a little bit of comparison, when Kardec talks about the scale of the spirits, where it starts with the 10th scale with the bad spirits until the 1 with the pure spirits, there is a characterization or a category that's about the neutral spirits. And the neutral spirits are still in that kind of whole category of imperfect spirits. Because if we are not doing the good, we are already doing the bad, right? Every little small piece, every little small opportunity that we have, we are encouraged to try and do something, even though if that something might not result in the best result or the best benefit. But we ought, or we are always invited to take that action. Yeah.
Quick question. So if you're not doing the good, if you're doing like nothing, does it mean you're doing the bad?
Yes.
Why?
Because you are missing an opportunity to do something good. You're missing an opportunity to do something good to ourselves, to yourself, or your neighbor. You're, let's say, wasting because I cannot think about a different word in English. You're wasting that opportunity, wasting that time that God gave us to be here to do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
makes sense. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if it's a blessing and a mercy for us to be here, right? Incarnated with all, even though we might say, I'm missing resource A or resource B or resources. So that's why I cannot make the good. But in fact, we have all the resources, and each one of us, if we believe that God is pure love, perfection, that God gives us everything that we need inside of us to do whatever we can do in this time of life, and even in another opportunities of life. And God has given us in the past already. Maybe in some of those opportunities, we took that opportunity, and in some cases, we might not have. And that's why we're here again, trying again. And that's why we will be here or somewhere else again if we, for some reason, are not able or capable, or for whatever reason, we're not able to do what we are set here to accomplish. Because God is merciful and will give us all the opportunities to not stay neutral and to do something. I think the trick is sometimes we get a little bit accommodated. It's like, yeah, God is merciful. Maybe next time I'll just rely on this mercifulness forever and ever. But again, that's another choice. And at some point, God, in its entirely wisdom that I don't fully understand, will push a little bit, saying, Luis, gave you all the opportunities, and I will still give you one more opportunity, but now with a little bit of more incentive or maybe pressure, because you've been committing. And isn't that what a teacher or an educator would do, right? Because you are being a little bit stubborn. You're making, and that's what Emmanuel said, right, in one of its texts, saying if you're committing the same mistake, exactly the same mistake, over and over and over and over, just stop, reflect. Aren't you being a little bit stubborn? Trying to take the same actions and hoping to get the same results, right?
I think the doing good part, like when you don't do good, you're doing bad, is similar to the bystander effect. It's just like, as imperfect spirits, we oftentimes think like someone else is doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, it was just coming to my mind one time that I was back in Brazil and I was just driving into the commercial area in Brazil. I don't remember if it was stone or steel, and there was someone in the floor, like someone that fell in the floor, and I was busy and I was late. And you have this initial thought of stopping and helping, and then you think someone else is doing, right? Yeah. So this is, it comes to us all the time as imperfect spirits, and if we think about like the broader picture, there are so many opportunities to help, and oftentimes like those thoughts come to my mind, the government should be doing it, someone else is doing it, there is already an organization helping, there is already someone else doing it, so we just don't. And there is always opportunity to do good. And I use the mea culpa, no? Yes, we don't do that as much as we can. There is always invitation. So if I am not being active, if like I am pecando, this is a sin too because I'm being passive.
But even we don't need to go that far in doing good with the neighbor, but it's doing good mainly to ourselves. Because what is the true meaning of charity? It's about benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. So let's talk about the biggest laboratory of our life, which is our family. Right? There's so many opportunities presented to us in doing good that helps myself in some challenges that we have with family members or friends or work, and to others as well, right? About being indulgent, about forgiveness. If I decide I'm gonna hate that or whatever, if we decided to be stuck in that, you were actually doing good to your own self, right? And taking that opportunity, even though if it's okay, I'm not able or I'm not capable to forgive right now. Perfect. But I will start doing at least a little bit of effort. Why? Let's try. Let's read. There's so many things. That is already not being neutral, at least in my personal opinion. Because you are putting some effort to understand and to reach whatever that state of forgiveness that you would like with yourself or someone else.
Yeah, and I also think, I don't know, just comes to my mind that before we incarnate or reincarnate, we kind of signed off like an agreement of coming to the light.
Kind of, I think we do
know,
sign.
So, like, if we're doing nothing, we're not doing the part that belongs to us in that agreement, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that agreement. Yeah.
So
we're
you definitely do that.
Yeah, and we are very enthusiastic, as we've heard, or we can read in some of the literature. We're very enthusiastic with that agreement. Say, yeah, we're gonna do this, do that. And then when we get here, we started going, like, oh, yeah, that's hard. Or it's like, oh, that was in the fine print. I didn't read that. So let's just go and analyze. I know I'm going to go a little bit faster here because we talked about, since when Victor actually brought that topic about comparison, right? A lot of the times we can stop looking at my own talents and just to count the talents of others, right? It's like, oh, look at Victor. He has this and that and that and this. It's like, that's not fair. How am I just with this small talent here, right? And Victor or anyone else, just to use an example, has all of that. That's not fair. But what happens is I'm putting all my effort, my energy, instead of working in whatever I had, small, big, or whatever, I'm just worried about the others, right? That's, again, it's a waste of time. And we talked lengthy a little bit on all the causes and the consequences of us comparing instead of doing all the work in ourselves, in multiplying and nurturing our own talent. And there's no talent small or big or medium. It's the talents that are adequate or proper for Luis and for each one of us here. God, again, it's always based on that principle. I always go back. If we trust and believe that God is pure love and perfection, God gave us whatever we need. We just sometimes need to dig in and cultivate and say, okay, this is my talent. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, right? And interesting enough, when we look at the parable, the master didn't say, hey, you, I'm giving you 5, I want 10. Hey, you 2, I'm giving you 2, I want 4. Never. There's no dictated end result, right? And there's no kind of same finish line that we compete. It's like, yeah, I'm going to beat Victor. I'm going to be a better mortal spirit by the end of when I'm 55. No, there's no point of this, right? Every one of us has its own pace. And when we talk about last time, when we have our boat, we have our own boat, right? With our own skills, with our own limitations, every one of us. And again, I go back, as long as we try to put effort in doing something. It's not a race. So any talent can be multiplied, right? And in some cases, when we start, yeah, look at that. He or she has 4 of this, 5 of that. It's important that we are a little bit aware and we start even, remember when I talk about God's love, and when you start even question God's love. Say, yeah, I only have half of this because I think I was really bad in 2 or 3 lives past. I must have thrown stones into Jesus. I deserve this. It's important that we don't go in that because there is this law of esquecimento, that we forget. Right? We forget our past for a reason. Otherwise, we will be too crazy here. It would be like insane to leave here knowing everything that we did. And if we did something, okay, it's there. I have all the things, the talents that I have now, that I can do the good, that I'm able to do the good here. God still loves me because God gave me another opportunity to try again. And going to that mindset of just seeing how bad we were or the bad things that we did really doesn't add any value. What adds value is what I can do now to change. And we all know, when you think about habits, the mental paths that we have in our head, kind of the way that we react to situations, that is constructed and built from all past lives. If I'm like, oh, this pattern here, not the one that I want to cultivate and keep doing it, that is an indication that's something for me to work on. If I need to work on, let me put the effort that I can put and work on at this time. Simple as that. But it's Rosandro, when he does a very important, very interesting reflection in this parable, and it is a mindset or a path that if we chose to really just think about what we've done in the past, it doesn't lead to any positive outcomes. Important is we live the present and do what we can do right now to multiply, to nurture, and to use whatever talents that we have, mainly not talking about selfishness and just, I'm just taking care of myself, but what I can do with that talents to make me better. And as I work on myself and make myself better, I can overflow. And all those qualities can start helping my neighbors or my friends or whoever. So fear, right? Mm-hmm. So that is kind of one of the crux of this parable, and how that one servant was really afraid and fearful for not doing what he or she could have done. So Hosanna does a very interesting, and he's like, okay, let's bring the servant to reality, right? To nowadays. We can take two kind of stances. So let's take the 5. He had 5 talents. If something happened with 1 talent, he had 4, right? Another, he had 3. He had some cushion. He had some risk mitigations there, that he could have done something. But the one that just had 1 talent, really, it's just 1. If I mess it up with this one, I don't know what the reaction of the master will be. But the important point is, exactly, don't being afraid of the reaction of the master, because God is pure love, and God will give the opportunity, or if we even translate it to our own experiences in life, the experiences itself will be the reap of all the outcomes and benefits that will help us with whatever we are trying to do with that 1 talent, of things that I can do that result in good things, and things that I should not be doing because I didn't get the results that I was helping to get. So again, the importance is to make that choice, not staying neutral, and believing rationally, actually, that God is that love and will give us the chances and the opportunities for us to course correct as many times that we are required if we make a mistake, right?
I have a question about that, the fear, because like you can't really lose a talent, right? So would it be fear of not using it well, or are you using it for bad instead of good?
I think when he meant talent is all the qualities that we have, and if I don't use my qualities, I just hid my own qualities, and I don't use that qualities even for myself to make it better or help others.
But why would you have the fear of because you can't lose, right? Like, why would you have a fear of using that talent?
So that's the whole crux of the parable, because at that point, that servant is thinking that he could lose that talent,
Okay.
right? And here, let's take one example. I don't know. I like to speak in public, right? I think I do a decent job, but I'm not going to do it because I'm fearful of judgment. I'm fearful of what others will think. So I'm just hitting and wasting my talent of being a good public speaking and failure. And if we really dig into a little bit deeper, isn't that a little bit of a egoic movement, right? Of us not being seen as good, or what people will think about me. So that is one way of hitting our own talent. The parable kind of used the talent as something more physical, right? As kind of a coin or something that you can really hit. But when we translated this to yourself, it's all the qualities that I can do to help myself and others, right? And we're going to see one example that Chico gives with some specific talents, and what was the one talent that he used and that servant decided to hide. So, but what is, and this is what kind of, for me, when gets a little bit more important in interest, what is the role, or how does fear play a role in the world that we live in?
Too much criticism.
Too much criticism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you are like scared that someone is gonna criticize you way too much, so you stop taking
Yeah.
it back.
The fear, when he does a little bit of a little more understanding of fear, the fear is when we are afraid with frustration. Every time that we decided, oh, I'm not going to do X, it's because I don't want to be frustrated.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Oh, absolutely.
Like not to get frustrated.
Is that possible not to get
Oh,
frustrated?
not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that possible here
No.
in this world?
No.
No.
But it's hard to accept though. Like
It requires a lot of
a
effort.
lot of effort.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah. And even here in English, right? Everything, I'm so frustrated. It's so frustrating. So if we take into consideration the context that we live in, it's pretty much impossible for us not to be frustrated.
I think it's getting worse also because everything is getting easier, more immediate, and so we practice that less.
And we want instant results, even with our cell phones. I know another news, another thing new, like that dopamine thing, right?
Yeah.
So so now we're in a conundrum because if it's so hard or it's almost impossible for us not to be frustrated, meaning we will be frustrated, but then fear is our protection. Oh, I'm not going to do this because I'm going to I don't want to be frustrated. Do you see the math? It doesn't add up because now I'm going to be like frozen.
Yeah.
I'm going to hide myself in somewhere far away and just isolate myself because I don't want to be frustrated. So for me, the invitation is, how do I deal with that frustration? Or how do I prepare
I think I
to
do.
face?
Because if you don't have a patient, that's the point.
Yeah, patience
Yes.
to deal with that.
You have to learn to be patient.
Yeah. Patience is a virtue. Yeah. One that tests us every day.
You have to start from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe using the frustration as a motivation.
Exactly. Or how do we navigate those frustrations? And that's kind of how Rosandro.
Luis,
Yeah.
in education, like nowadays, when I say education, like the studies and things to work with little kids, they're starting to say that the kids need to be frustrated. They cannot always have their way,
Yeah.
because that is teaching them from young age that it's okay. You're never going to be always the first one. You're never going to get everything you want. So I guess it's not easy, but it's the realization that this needs to happen. So then when they become adults or even teenagers and adults, they already know how to deal a little bit of that frustration
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like this is a way also to recognize their feelings
Yeah.
and validate, because we went through a period of like very traditional education, then you just do what you have to do, don't argue, don't ask, don't nothing. And then to the other extreme, like, oh, laissez-faire, do everything, oh, good for you, all of that kind of
Extremes are not good.
extreme. And then now what we see, like, okay, kids need to learn
Yeah.
also that, okay, depending on the age, of course,
Mhm.
according to their developmental age and maturity, but the frustration is something that I've
It's
been
part of
hearing,
the
like,
process, right?
yeah, so they need to get frustrated, they need to be, you don't have to say plan something for them to be
Yeah,
frustrated, but
yeah.
what happens, validate that frustration, but let it happen too, like you can, as parents, sometimes you just wanna protect them and do everything.
Yeah.
We kind of anticipate things so they don't get frustrated,
Mhm.
and we are not helping,
Yeah.
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 right?
Yeah, it's
So-
just
And you
like,
can-
And you can ask them, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And you can see that servant. It's like, I don't want to be frustrated with a master.
Yeah.
Right? Can't you see that? I don't want to be frustrated. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
I might lose this or I might do something wrong. Right? Same, it's interesting. Same thing is happening with us nowadays. 2023 years later, it's still, the lesson is still here for us. Right? And life itself has all the mechanisms with frustration and so many things that are here for us to learn. And it's up, how do we motivate ourselves, right? Again, do we, with that approximation, it's like, okay, I'm gonna be frustrated, might make a mistake, but I will learn, I will make maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and then I make 4 forward, 2 back. That's part of the process, right? Ju, you're gonna say something.
no, I was thinking about frustration tolerance as one of the indicators of mental health, mental health too.
Yeah.
We have a generation now,
That's-
and I remember I was talking with one of our friends that is an educator, a teacher, and he was like very upset with how we approach as a society, and we try to put kids in a bubble and overprotect and say, like, for example, there is a championship or a competition, everybody wins a medal. And it's like, oh, good job, yeah, you participate. There is some value on that, on validating like the motivation and participation, but there is also this component that there is only one first place. So there are 20 playing. You will lose. You're not first place all the time, and it's okay too. And you gotta be frustrated, and you gotta move on.
Yeah.
Like, this is part of life. If you overprotect, I agree with Anna. It's just like, what are we doing as a society?
Yeah. And here's kind of how, well, this is I took from Rosandro. There are like kind of basically kind of those 2 outcomes. You got it right, good, or you got it wrong.
Yeah.
Okay? Got it wrong, you kind of are frustrated. So you got it, when you get it right, it's kind of good, next. But here, if I put a little bit of the Spiritism lenses into it, even when I got it right, there is a time or an opportunity for me to reflect. Why did I get it right? What have I done that really resulted in that good outcome? Because if I face that again, chances are I can use the same thing that I did and will get a similar result. So it's important for us, even when we got it right, kind of analyze and reflect so it can help us for the probably many times that we will got it wrong.
And help others as well.
Exactly.
Sometimes we put our expectations as well in something we done.
Yes, expectations,
we
yeah.
You don't have the feedback you're supposed to have. And then you get anxiety, anxious, those things, everything is related with the mental health.
Yeah. That's very much when we got it wrong. It's how do we deal with that failure? How do we deal with that frustration that we got? And even if I take into that mental health thing aspect, we are seeing increased rates of suicides, right? Because when we look at this suicide, what is happening with that human being trying to end his or her life, it's just because him or her just want to end the pain. There is a pain within that human being that that human being believes that ending life, the pain will end as well. But if we read all the literature about suicide, we know that's not in fact the case, right? Because the pain is not in the human body, in the body, it's in the spirit, right? So us changing this perspective from getting wrong to learning, and I bring kind of the virtue of this, the feeling of apprentice. If we know that we'll get it wrong a lot of times, can we change the get it wrong to a learning experience? To, okay, what have I done that doesn't get to the result that I wanted, that I need to change? Am I going to change tomorrow, in 1 year, or for the next situation? Might or might not, and that's okay. Because the experience will tell us and will give us as many opportunities as required for us to really learn. Maybe we learn 10% in the first experience, but we have 90% more. Then we learn 30 more, just putting a little bit of math on that. But it's all part of this journey, and how the mindset that we are invited, so we don't lose the talents or hide those talents and just give up. Say, yeah, it's just about frustration. What's the point of doing something, right? That's not all about frustration. It's about the learning and even how my talent will multiply, getting better and better and better as we learn with more of our failures.
And that reminds me, if you want to have success in something, first you need to be okay in failing with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are okay in failing, you remove all the pressure. And like you said, if we're able to use our talents, it's not just about us. Because if I have a talent, my talent can influence the world, can influence people.
Yeah.
And if I'm hiding, it's not just about my journey, but I'm like doing the bad because I am not helping or influencing people and having this impact on others that I should be doing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. There's a quote that I took from Sandro. He says that fear is the password that does not open the safe or safety box of all the love that God pours on us. I found that very, very impactful, because sometimes God is giving us that thing, situation, opportunity, whatever, for us to be better, even if it's about failing. But because of fear, we decided not to embark on, and we lose that opportunity.
So maybe the password would be courage? Or, I don't know. Probably right.
Great determination.
Grit, courage,
Resilience.
resilience, confidence, trust,
Trust.
patience. I would say lots of virtue that kind of go together, so we can really move forward and really. I think it's about seeing the experience for the learning, and seeing the experience of life, the various experience of life, for us to grow. It's like if you're in a planet of trials and expiations, trials will be part of it, and trials are those opportunities for us to change something that is not good in ourselves. And as we change ourselves, we are also changing this planet and the society, right? But there is one behavior that sometimes it doesn't serve us very well, because okay, Luis, you're telling me not be neutral, so I have all the power, everything, and I'm able to solve everything. It's all about me. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there is a component of myself, a part that I play, that I have or invited to put the effort, but there are sometimes that I put everything that I was able to, I did. So now there's an act of humility to trust and have confidence that the rest, that I don't even know what it is, God and the spirituality will be able to help me with the rest. Because sometimes we get into that movement. It's like, I am the most powerful person and I have everything. I have everything to do of my part, right?
Yeah.
And there's some side of prepotence to say, yeah, I'm the one that I'm master of myself and I can do it. We can do it with what is able for us to do it. And there's a passage in Os Mensageiros that says that anyone who operates and cooperates with a spirit turned to God can always hope for the best. It's not a promise of friendship, it's the law. So what it's saying here is if we cooperate with God and do what is possible for us to do, the rest we can trust in God. We can trust the spirituality will be able to help us with the things that's like, yeah, I don't know. I did it, and saying, but how do I know, Luis? How do I know that I really did what I was able to do? And my answer would be, we can check our conscience. And we see, yeah, I think that this is it. I'm feeling that I put all the effort that I could. Now, the only thing that is left for me to do is trust. Trust in God and trust in spirituality. And what I think is interesting, even though it's only 3 words there, it's the law. It's the law of God's love. It's not a favor. It's not, yeah, Luis is nice. Maybe God will help. No, it's not about that. It's every one of us. Every one of us will be able to rely on God and the spirituality. And that spirituality can be our guardian angels, mentors, and when we're here, there's so many mechanisms that we are not even aware that God has in its disposal to help us. I think for me, the message is the act of humbleness and humility to trust that will happen.
And it's interesting because if you're facing a challenge, like the illusion of life will make you believe that the challenge is this thing or this person, but actually the challenge is yourself. How are you going to position yourself in that? And if you are doing the right thing, you have the sense of peace, like no matter what, and you let God work because you can't control the outcome. But if you are doing the right thing and you're okay with that, things kind of sort out, and those challenges disappear because you've learned your lesson.
And that's for me, that's an act of confidence and trust. The different password instead of fear, of trusting and having that confidence that will happen.
And you said humility.
For me, humility is another one that calls my attention.
It's not like I will do the right because I can't control. It's understanding, it's letting God do, but putting yourself in your place.
Because the only place that I can control is myself. Yeah. Nothing less. Poor Pedro. What? I don't have what time is it?
55.
55. Okay. So this is the paraphrasing of the parable of talents. So Chico, when he was touring North America and Europe, he used the parable and he gave kind of the talents. So one, instead of the 5 talents, like what are the talents? The one had money, power, comfort, skill, and prestige. The one that had 2 had intelligence and authority. And look at the last one. Just the Spiritism knowledge. Just that. So let's see what happens with the one with the 5, 2, and what is the message for us that calls a little bit of our responsibility to our own selves of having the Spiritism knowledge. So Lord, I've committed a lot of mistakes and I haven't been able to carry out your will, which determines the good for all your subjects. But with the 5 talents you put me in my hands, I started to cultivate, at least with small results, another 5, which are work, progress, hope, and gratitude towards some of the companions who remained in the world. Forgive me, divine friend, if I could not do more. So here, there's another example with all the work and progress, how I can help myself and I can help society.
This one is rich. He has
This-
like five very good talents.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And he's like, forgive me if I cannot do more. Lord, please forgive me for my incapacity. I couldn't clearly understand the designs that prescribe equal happiness for all creatures, and I perpetuated pitiful mistakes. Even so, I mobilized the two values you gave me, and with them, I raised another two that are culture and experience for many of the brothers who remain in rearguard.
This one had authority and
This one
knowledge.
had authority and intelligence. So he multiplied into culture and experience. Let's see the Spiritists. Lord, I give you back the Spiritist knowledge, untouched and pure, which I received from your magnificence. The Spiritist knowledge is light, Lord, and with it I learned that your law is too hard. And with it I learned that you're assigning to each one according to their own work. How can I use such a lamp, bright and alive, when men on earth are torn by nightmares of envy and jealousy, cruelty and illusion? How to use the light of your truth without hurting or disturbing? I thought that's interesting. How can because sometimes when you do our self-knowledge, our self-encounter, it does hurt sometimes with what we found in ourselves. Something that we were not expecting maybe. Sometimes. Trying to be nice, yeah.
Most of the time.
And how to bother or hurt without bringing deplorable consequences for myself. Look at here again the results, or kind of how hard sometimes I'm not going to take that action because it's going to be hard. You know that the truth among men creates problems where it appears. In light of this, I was afraid of your law and judge to be the most reasonable measure for me to accommodate myself with the peace of my home.
Comfort zone.
Comfort zone, like accommodating ourselves. How does that relate to neutrality? I have all of that, but man, too much. I have to face a lot of conflict with myself and other neighbors. I'm going to be here.
Too much work.
Too much work, right? Thus thinking, I hid the gift you recommended to apply, and I restored to you such wealth without the slightest touch on my part. So then what happens is kind of the master said, you are aware that I have attributed the light of truth to you as the greatest good of all. If both your companions, the other two servants with 5 and 2, didn't get everything right, it's because they lacked the discernment. Look at that, how the Spiritism knowledge can help us with the discernment. The discernment, what is good for me, what is not good for me, what is good for society, what are some of the things that I can do, what are the things that, what the results that we'll get. Discernment is a big virtue that is calling upon us in every decision that we are making, because we use the discernment to say, take that path, or stay here. And the Spiritism doctrine, with the basic 5 books, and with all the other things that were collected, gave this wealth of knowledge that can really improve our discernment and help us with the choices that we are invited to make every single time of our life. You could have given them through correcting by loving and working by instructing. Hiding the wealth I lent you, you were not only lost for the fear of suffering and helping, as you have also harmed the deficient work of your brothers, whose days in the world would have reached a greater yield in eternal good, if they had received the share of love and services, humility and patience that you deny them. Even though it sounds a little bit harsh, but I really like this paraphrasing of the parable, because it puts in a little bit of more tangible the talents and how the Spiritism doctrine can really help. I'm not saying here that, forget about all the other religion. No, I'm just, because we know what we have in the books, this doctrine really can we can leverage all the knowledge that we have to really improve ourselves, to really use that discernment, to really help not only ourselves, but the ones that have power, that have skills, that have knowledge, to bring that lenses and say, how does that play a role within yourself and the entire society? So I really appreciate how this doctrine can really help us and our community to make better decisions, to take better paths. And I truly believe that even the other religions, once you really embrace that religion as a place to improve our own selves, that can do a similar result. I only know Spiritism, and I really trust that all that information can really reap so many positive benefits for myself and for the society that we are in.
Yeah, because if you have power and influence, but you don't have that discernment,
Yeah.
that moral compass, you can do a lot of poor decisions. But if you have discernment, then you have everything.
Yeah.
You're a light to everything, that all the shadows around you.
Exactly.
Right.
Discernment. Yeah. So I think my last invitation is, as you learn, be aware. Let us be aware that we can do what we can do. Awareness of act of humility, that sometimes we will do everything that we can, and we are invited to trust for God to provide the rest that we can't or we don't do, or we're not able to do, and be and act and just do the work. It's because we have the law of progress. There is no merit for us just being showered with all the solutions without no effort from our own selves. And be careful for every one of us when that fear is kind of really being a block and something that really prohibits us to take that step forward. For as small as it is, the importance is to move forward and change that view of the things that the failures that we're going to have as a learning experience, right? That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it was really nice to see like the last text that you showed, because it highlighted how they all had different talents and they all relied on each other.
Yeah.
So you know, the one, the last one here, how he could benefit the other. So even though we all have different talents, we rely on others to.
It's like a tapestry, right? Yeah. And I like to see kind of all this talents and how Spiritism and this knowledge kind of weaves in all the tapestry of talents that the world has, that is comprised of all the talents that we individually have, and how we all need those talents, right? There's no talent that is less or more or not as important, less important, more important. All talents have its place and fulfill a function.
Right? It's almost a
Puzzle,
what
yeah.
you don't have, the other one has.
Yes.
If you put it all together, there is completion.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we get so perfectionist, like in using the talent like in the right way. We think it's not good enough.
Yep.
But we're just wasting an opportunity to do something that it's already good enough.
Yeah.
Maybe not for us, but for others.
Yeah.
I know a person like that.
Me too.
She's sitting behind you.
Right?
She's right there behind you.
Yeah. And even if I translate this to some of the work that we do, being very specific, intangible, the work that we do here in FSS. For example, when I started my journey of speaking, I thought, oh, I can't speak. I'm so imperfect. I have so many flaws and things. But it's not about that, right? Of course, if the Spiritism movement needed only perfect human beings, there was no need to have a Spiritist movement, right? There's no point. It's through, for me personally, it's through these opportunities where I learn more and I can see some of my flaws, and you can see some of the topics that I bring are because of my flaws. And I kind of take this opportunity to learn a little bit more and share. And maybe I'm making sense. And as I talk out loud, it's easier for me to kind of absorb and see, okay, I can do this, or this what it means for my own life, right?
That is very interesting, because I think that I have my own perspective view, because everything you do is based on the same foundation of morals, you know, and all those like virtues. And then you have your own free will to decide which way you want to go. But you always have the action and reaction for you. Things that do it.
With all the choices,
Exactly.
there's a law of free will.
Yeah.
You are free to decide to stay where you are or go to different directions. And all the directions and all the decisions will have a consequence.
Yes.
It's not a punishment.
No.
And I think there is sometimes in the Spiritist movement that we're here to suffer. And we're so bad.
As you said, we only have control for our own actions.
Yeah.
Not somebody else.
Yeah. And the law of consequence, yeah, you did.
Moses-
You're gonna be punished. But
Moses-
it's not like this, right?
Moses.
It's the law is about doing. If you do something that's not positive, you're gonna have not so positive consequence. If you did something positive, you also have positive
Life
consequence.
gives you constant feedback.
Yeah,
on your
the
choices.
feedback loop is always there, right?
It's
Yeah.
action and reaction, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's do our final prayer. So, as we are connected with God, with Jesus Christ, our Master, let's be grateful again for all the teachings, in special today, the parable of talents that can really shine a light in some of the behaviors that we invited to take, the behaviors of taking actions, of making choices, and changing a little bit of our views on the failures and frustration, and how we can learn, and how the learnings can help each one of us to be stronger, to be better, and to learn what to do and maybe what not to do in some circumstances of life. Let's be grateful for this house of love, for this light that spreads love, spreads compassion towards each one of us and all our neighbors and friends here in Calgary that find in Spiritism that light to help us with our discernment, to help us to keep moving forward in our journey in this life. And ask that the spiritual team continue blessing this work, this house, and continue blessing each one of us, full with faith, with trust, with courage, with confidence, with love. And may we have another blessing and loving week, and that we can be here again the next activities and the next Sunday learning more with Jesus and the Spiritism doctrine. So be it.